aboard, yeah.
We have a good time. We barely make it back to the dock. Charging 4.9 flows.
I'm Evan Kraft. I'm the owner-operator of the Spirit of Adventure. Bluefin tuna are a very strange, mysterious fish and mysterious behavior, and they have so many different moods. I think through the years, you know, that we've been targeting these bluefin tuna, I mean, we really are getting a lot of experience as our sport fishing fleet goes. You know, a lot of time and a lot of trips and a lot of nights, a lot of boats. We're getting a lot of experience, and we're learning a lot. It seems like every year, you know, us and you know, as the fleet, we get better and better at it. We're finding out things that work a little bit better. You know, when we first started night fishing, we were fishing flat falls, and we found out those things work. And then we started transitioning to knife jigs because they sink faster. You can get them down to that school faster, and you can get down and stay down at depth, you know, for a longer time, and you get there faster. And so you know, we started using really heavy jigs, 400 grams, 500 gram, real foot long lures, because they get down to the zone really fast. And you know, when the fish are biting really good, you can almost catch one on anything that gets down there in the zone. But you know, I think through the years, past few years, we've been finding that they don't always want anything in the water. Sometimes they're a little bit less prone to bite anything, and we're finding that the smaller the profile of the lure, you know, the more chance of you getting bites are. And you know, that goes with the reasoning of why the tungsten lures are so successful.
Oh, there's a fish on the descent. Ah, there it is.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, an angler has to be very dynamic and adaptable to any trip that they come out on, whether, you know, it's a 3/4 day trip or a 15-day trip. You know, you're gonna have to be dynamic and bring a little bit of different gear, you know, whether you've got 3 different rod setups and different pound tests, or maybe there's different lures of different weights in your box, in your bag that you bring. Just being very dynamic and be able to adapt to different situations, you know, because we never know what's going to be available on any given day to us as far as fish to target. You know, some years we have good offshore kelp patty fishing. We're fishing yellowtail and dorado off kelps in the daytime, and we catch our fish in the daytime. You know, sometimes the most available fish in our fishery is the bluefin tuna, and that's our greatest chance at making a catch on our trips.
Look at that thing, dude. Jesus. Beastly. Wow.
I would have to say that this early season, you know, fishing early summer and spring, there's a lot of times, if not most times, we catch the majority of our fish at nighttime. For whatever reason, you know, the bluefin are kind of go off of the chew, off of the bite in the daytime. Maybe they're more actively feeding at nighttime. Maybe that's the reason. But you know, it's pretty common that we're catching most of our fish at nighttime. So if that's kind of the trend, what's going on, you know, in the reports and the fishing reports, then I would definitely say, you know, an angler should be ready to spend some time fishing at the rail at nighttime, you know, because we're fishing at all hours of the night, and sometimes we have really good schools and fishing at 9 p.m. when the sun goes down and it just gets dark, and sometimes we have good schools at 4:30 a.m. you know, and throughout the night too. So we can't tell you when there's a magic hour. You kind of just have to be ready on your toes, you know.
That, dude. Bringing it over. Nice one. There we go. Woo-hoo.
Yeah, you know what, I mean, the bare minimum basic for an angler coming out on a trip, I mean, even a first timer that walked on the boat without any gear, I mean, you can come on the boat and we'll outfit you. The bare minimum, you can get away with the type of fishing that we're doing lately with 2 rods. You know, you have a daytime rod and a nighttime rod. Your daytime rod's probably going to be able to fish 30-40 pound test. You know, they have rods and reels that are pretty adaptable. You can fish 30 to 50 pound test on, and that's going to be your daytime rod. And your nighttime rod, obviously, it's going to be at least 80 pound test at night, mostly braid. I would have to say that it's pretty standard nowadays that your braids will be marked for depth and distance, whether you bought the braid on the shelf that's metered in 100 feet increments, or maybe you marked it, measured it yourself and marked it with magic markers. But you could get away with two outfits, but obviously the more rods you have in your quiver are just more tools in your arsenal. So I mean, an angler that has 5 different setups, it's just going to be easier for you to adapt to the different situations.
Look at that thing! Look at that! Dude, nice one!
I'm a believer that at nighttime, you know, the color doesn't matter. You know, we see fish, they bite black lures, yellow lures, chrome, white, glow in the dark. I mean, you could paint polka dots and stripes. It doesn't matter. We see them all eating the same. So I am a firm believer that for sure at nighttime the color doesn't matter. But as far as the weight and the size of the lure, I would say middle of the road. I mean, pretty standard is a 300 gram lure. You know, a popular lure is the West Coast jiggers. Lures are very standard and common in the industry. You know, the Daiwa SK jigs, those are very, very common now too. Obviously they have a million different lures out there. The tungsten lures are popular, but 300 grams is the middle of the road. We like to get away with the smallest size and even weight that you can get away with at nighttime, in the daytime too. So it's obviously wind and weather and current dependent. You know, if you have very light wind and flat calm seas and you're not drifting very fast, you can fish a 200 gram lure at nighttime.
1, 2.
You want to hold them? Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
I would assume, you know, it has to do with their feeding behavior and feeding habits. You know, the forage that they're feeding on. You know, in the daytime, a lot of times when we see them actively feeding in the daytime, they're feeding on surface bait fish, like anchovy is probably the most common bait fish we see them actively feeding on. You know, you see the foamer, you see fish boiling and jumping out of the water, and most of the time it's on an anchovy bait ball. When they're very keyed in on a particular forage, like an anchovy, when that's the wild bait that's around, they're very keyed into it. You know, they know that that's the food that's around and that's what they want to eat. And I think sometimes it's really hard to you know, change their mind about what their appetite and what's on the plate for lunch.
Sure.
You know, at nighttime when we're hunting and searching these schools, at nighttime obviously you can't use your eyes to visually spot a school, so our main tool is our sonar and our machines at nighttime. You know, we're running the sonar 24 hours a day, but searching for the bluefin with our machines, you know, when you find a school, when you hit a school and get some targets on your sonar, you know, you try and get over the top of that school. And a lot of times the bluefin, sometimes they're very easy to get the boat on and over, and sometimes they're very squirrely and skittish, and you have to chase them down and zigzag and spin around in circles to try and get on top of that school. But I think what we see a lot is, you know, when we try and get the boat directly over the bulk of the school, you can really see how they act. And you can get an idea. Sometimes you can tell when they're not that into it, and it doesn't seem like you're gonna get any bites. And some days and some nights or some particular schools are very receptive to the boat, and you can see it. They're more, I guess you could say, more welcoming of the boat. And you know, the right kind of school, when they act right, you know, they let you get on top of them, and you like to see the school kind of spread out on the machines, and you'll see the school kind of loosen up, and all the fish inside the school loosen up, and what we call it fluffing out. You know, on the screens you'll see the individual fish spread out. And we generally like to see that at nighttime. I'd have to say most of the times that we do really well with good fishing at nighttime, they tend to act like that on the machines. And I think a lot of it has to do with the lights at nighttime. You know, we got the lights going. We fire the lights up either while we're driving or when we're getting on top of a school. And it seems like once you get directly over the top of one of these nice big schools, they kind of stop for a second and they're checking you out, and sometimes I think the lights really attract them. Thank you all for coming fishing with us. For you of you that fished with us in the past, for you guys and gals that have never fished with us before, we have plenty of trips available on our schedule, open party and charters. Anybody that wants to give us a shot and come fishing with us, we'd be happy to take you out fishing on the Spirit of Adventure.